Cool. So, welcome to Journey into Parenting. I'm really excited to be doing an interview today on the subject of how to thrive in your relationship after having a child, because I think it's a question that a lot of people have, how to adapt your relationship when a child comes into the picture. And so I'm interviewing Gavin today, and he's made a course called the Groundwork. And the Groundwork is all about kind of building strong foundations of the self so that you can then thrive in your future relationships. And I wondered if that was a good place to start. So in terms of, how to do well in your relationship after having your child, that perhaps fundamental to this is the relationship that you have with yourself, because all of the other relationships we have kind of flow out of that. So yeah, it'd be great to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, and that is the fundamental aspect of the Groundwork is, we don't tell them that until the last week, of course, but
I've spoiled it.
There's I think that because we target a very mainstream audience, that's obviously the work that you and I have done, and people that might be listening to this podcast or whatever it is, video, YouTube thing. We're maybe a bit more aware of that, but I think that there's a real sense of the fairy tales and or when I meet X then life's going to be perfect, and when this happens then this, and so we actually based the course on a Rumi quote.
Oh, cool.
And I'm kind of going to paraphrase it because I haven't got it in front of me, but it's like your task is not to seek for love. It's merely to discover and dissolve the barriers that you've put up against it. And essentially what the course is. Takes people through looking at the past. Then we go into the stuff around the shadow. Then we go into archetypes. And then we talk about getting into our bodies and how to trust our innate bodily response to something, rather than our intellectualization of that bodily response. And then we do some intention setting, and it's quite a nice little journey. We've simplified a lot of things and taken out all the jargon and the hippie stuff, and we've made it quite normal.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I've just written a book actually, and I had a mentor during the process, and she's like, you've got to take that sentence out, it just sounds way too hippie. And I think it's like, because I've been part of this world for so long that I've lost the map. I don't know what normal is anymore.
Absolutely. You kind of recalibrate, right? You recalibrate to that, and then when you speak to someone who's not in that world, it's like, what did you just say? And I'm like, oh God, what did I just say? That's quite, And there's a part of me as well that really doesn't like that world, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
It's and forgetting all the kind of spiritual bypassing side of it. I mean, just I don't know, it's like, we have these veneers, many of us, and including me, of how I'm supposed to be. Yeah. And then I essentially kind of break them down and learn new veneers. It's like that for me.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
So we hope that we've broken it down to what really works, the core of what it is, and stripped out all the jargon and all the there's less yantras, mantras and tantras, put it that way.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. So maybe you can tell me about your own journey, because you were just telling me that you've got a 20-month-old son, and how that transition has been for you. So, from being a couple to then being a couple with a child.
Yeah. So we met at Borderland, which is the Scandinavian version of Burning Man. So it's the offshoot, the Scandinavian offshoot. And so we met in, well, you can probably guess which type of circumstances. It was a Burning Man type circumstances, and we met, and we were let's go into sort of an open relationship and let's see how it goes, and I was very much in that world. And then things shifted, and I guess that we were both, I want to say polyamory, because we weren't really taking it to its fullest expression. And it was, I mean, if anyone out there's tried polyamory, you've got to be a fucking saint, I think, to be able to really do it properly. And I only know of a few people who do it properly. Some really great teachers, I think, and they've even said that it took them 20 years to master it.
Okay.
So it's like, it was just too difficult. I was working in a sort of normal job, and so was she, and we were living together, and it was just like, can we even navigate that whole thing as well at the same time? And so we kind of became a more monogamous kind of relationship. We'd still do the things, go to these parties or whatever, but we just kept it a bit more, I guess, normal.
Yeah.
And I hate using that word, but I want to use it in this case. And then then Maria got pregnant, and suddenly we were like, okay, this is really time to just rein things in, and we need to focus on that and being a family.
Okay.
So yeah, I feel like I'm telling this story really long-winded, but yeah, I guess it was a journey for me. I know it was for me of just accepting the fact that I'm not this guy who can just fly off to this faraway country and join this festival and just do what I want anymore. That was hard for me.
Yeah.
It took me a while to get around that. And it actually, even after he was born, I was still kind of like, I want my old life.
That's interesting, because in the course that I offer,
I wouldn't swap it for the world.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, because in the course that I'm offering, I make a space for people to grieve for their old lives.
It is grieving.
Yeah, because actually, I tell this story a lot, but I cried every single day of my pregnancy, just because I was scared. I didn't know what I was stepping into, and I was having to really let go of my old identity. But I feel like because I really went through that grieving process, when my son was born, I was totally ready for it. Like I was like, okay, yeah, it felt really blissful, actually. And so I feel like if people can process that before they have a child, then it's much easier to accept the life that you're moving into.
Gosh, absolutely. I really admire and honor you for doing that. I mean, you obviously know this stuff, and you probably knew as well, but if you don't do that, that's going to come out anyway, sideways potentially, and potentially even through your child. It's like they feel everything. They feel everything, and if we don't express it, they do, I think.
Yeah.
No,
absolutely. I mean, I've really had that awareness. Like I remember there was one day when my son was about 3 and he was having a tantrum at the bus stop, and I knew it was because of what was going on internally for me, and I was sort of thinking, thank goodness these other people don't know that, because he was sort of expressing externally like my
and also the flip side of that is, isn't it a shame these people don't know that? Because I think we live in a very different world if everyone was aware of how these beautiful beings tend to express the shit that we sometimes are incapable of going into. Or maybe as well, it's like, man, I'm just managing to do life. I can't go into my grief, my sadness, my fear, my this, that, and the other. I mean, I feel really blessed that I went through a rocky period about 2 days ago, actually, and it was to do with this whole virus thing. And it was I felt very unaffected by it for a while, and then all of a sudden it's just something hit me, and I just felt very scared and really sad. And I didn't want to, in a similar vein to you, I didn't want to have that coming out sideways or be expressed, by my child or whatever. So I spoke to my partner and said, look, this is how I'm feeling. I just need to be a child with you right now. And can you just hold me on the sofa and I'll just snuggle up and cry. And I felt a lot better the next day. And actually there might have been that she took a little bit of that on as well. And then she did the same with me 2 nights ago, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. It is. It's a really full-on time, and I sort of, I don't know. I feel like I can almost feel the kind of the collective fear or something about the kind of collective field at the
Yeah.
moment, because I sort of, in a way, I feel quite good. Like I'm still getting up in the morning and meditating and doing yoga and things, but somehow there's this kind of low-lying anxiety that's sort of present
Yeah, I hear
at the
that. I hear
moment.
that. Yeah.
But also there's
Funny,
I
I
think,
saw there's the Schumann resonance. I'm guessing you know what the Schumann resonance is.
no, I don't actually.
So it's layman here, but it's the kind of general frequency of the planet. So
Okay.
the Earth kind of like rings like a bell, and so this frequency was very like, quite low, and they measure it, and they say that fear impacts the Schumann resonance, the Schumann frequency.
Okay.
And they've shown this chart that shows it basically go like that.
Yeah. And
Like,
who's they in this situation?
say that again.
Who do you mean by they?
I mean,
Just
the
out of
people who
curiosity.
measure the Schumann frequency.
Okay.
I guess
There's
they're
like
a
a
bunch of hippie scientists. I don't know,
hippie
but
scientist.
you can
Okay.
go online and type in
Okay.
Schumann frequency. It's
Mhm.
SCHUMANN, I think.
Okay.
But it's
Yeah.
fascinating, yeah.
Hmm. But coming back to the kind of relationship question,
Like,
so after you'd had this time of sort of crazy parties and polyamory, and you kind of spiraled back into being a couple, I guess. What kind of work did you do to build the foundations of that relationship?
yeah, man, we had to use every tool in our toolbox,
Okay.
and and thankfully Maria, we are, I guess, aware of the shadow in the, and you may disagree, and that's okay. But we believe there's a kind of shadow in the NVC world, for example.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I'm really grateful to Maria and to me for kind of seeing that a little bit more.
Mhm.
And so we would use the tools, but we would also use other tools. So we might do. We might sit down with a candle, for example,
Mhm. Mhm.
and say, "Oh, I'm feeling like this,"
Mhm.
and just describe how it feels. And I wouldn't necessarily go down the whole, when you do this I feel like this, because that does still feel like that's just a really
Yeah.
new way of arguing, and I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
shadow in that.
Yeah.
We wouldn't necessarily go there,
Mhm.
because I don't think it's helpful. I just think it's a
Yeah.
new way of being a little bitch.
It's interesting because
Personally.
the house that I'm living in now, when I first moved in, we were an NVC community, and
Drives me insane. I have to
what
leave.
it did, I learned loads, but it was a nightmare. It was horrible.
Oh yeah, it's just this
um, but I
absolute passive aggressive. I think it has its,
yeah,
the whole Harville Hendrix thing. It has its
mm,
place. Absolutely has its place.
definitely, yeah.
Even
Mm,
the sort of shadow work, the process they use in Women in Power, I think it's
mm,
fantastic. You go around the
yeah.
four
Mm,
directions, the four archetypes. Lover,
mm,
magician, warrior, and sovereign. And
yeah.
I think that that's really quite a nice way of doing it. I'm not
Mm.
particularly personally attracted to the NVC stuff.
Okay, I mean, because where I got to with it is that actually, I just need to own my stuff, because actually, if I'm constantly processing with other people in a way, I'm projecting it out onto them. Whereas if I kind of go, oh, I'm feeling a bit annoyed by that person, I wonder what's going on for me,
Yeah.
or I wonder who they remind me of from the past, and kind of taking
Total
ownership
self-process. Yeah, absolutely.
of that.
You know, Maria and I, she's done her basic shadow work facilitator training. We went away for a
Okay.
week together, and I progressed to doing my coaching training. So I'm
Mhm.
a shadow work coach now, and so
Mhm.
we
Cool.
use those tools because I think they're really valuable. But we
Okay.
also use those tools in another way as well. So we, this is not normal, by the way, just to be aware.
Okay.
but we go into that archetype, or that we go into the shadow and play it.
Okay, that's
So for
interesting.
example, without going into personal details from Maria, I'll go into my own. But so, in my upbringing, I had modeled to me a certain way of behaving, right? So I picked that up.
Yeah.
And I can try and deny that as much as I can. And I'm not going to be like that. That's not me. I'm not going to be like that. But it's, it's what, so the question we would like, what if we can really play that up, but the other person knows that we're acting out?
Okay, that's interesting.
And really going into it, really kind of being that, angry little girl or little boy, and having a little tantrum, and just like, but in a space where you say, I'm just gonna have a real big fucking tantrum right now.
Okay.
And I might say some stuff. It's going to be really shadowy and really blamey and really shitty. But know that I just need to act this out right now.
Okay.
And I find that, and we find that, it doesn't always work, but we found it really refreshing, actually.
That's interesting. 'Cause two things came into my head, and one of them is that, I've read that 95% of our cognitive processes are unconscious. So actually doing this kind of work is really helpful for bringing all of these things into consciousness. But also, I think there's a line between, drawing it out, becoming aware of it, integrating it, and kind of exaggerating, I don't know, strengthening the neural pathways so that we get stuck in those particular traits. And
So
I wonder if there's a kind of balance.
Are you saying, I just need clarity of what you're saying. Are you saying that doing that kind of acting out is essentially strengthening these connections, that it might not be such a good thing? Is that what you're saying?
I think so, yeah, because I used to do a lot of work around kind of, so in my kind of family culture, it wasn't okay to be angry, and it wasn't really okay to be sad, even though those things were kind of going on all the time under the surface. And when I first came across things like self-parenting, I did lots of kind of catharting, like lots of expressing my anger and my sadness. And I feel like as a result of that, I sort of became a bit more angry. And I'm not sure if, like, I think it was really helpful and really necessary for me to claim those traits. But also, yeah, I guess that, there's some evidence also that if you make a regular practice out of catharting in that way, then you're strengthening the kind of the anger sort of neural pathway. So yeah, it's just something to be aware of, I think.
Yeah, I would argue that the reason you're doing this podcast right now is because you've actually allowed your anger to be channeled.
Yeah, I think it's definitely necessary to, like, we need the full spectrum of emotions. Like, we need to be kind of comfortable within our kind of emotional landscape. I just realised emotional landscape is one of the hippie terms that my mentor told me not to use.
Take that out. Yeah, emotional landscape. Wow.
Yeah, what is that?
Like gardening, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's necessary, but maybe there's a kind of an awareness that we need to have of, like, when is it the right time to cathart and express, and when is it the time to kind of, to move on?
Well, it's not the right time in the moment, because then that's just having an excuse to be a dick, I think.
Okay, yeah.
If you're in the moment and you're feeling like you are actually angry at that person, then that's not the right time to do it.
Yeah.
That's the right time to use whatever tools that you've got in your tool bag to get through it, to breathe into it, to own it.
Yeah.
To maybe take some space, to ask the question, have you eaten yet? How are you feeling?
Yeah.
Do you want a little snuggle? And then we can come back to this later.
Yeah.
And then maybe when that energy's just calmed down and I'm not feeling angry at the other, then I could say, I believe I could say, look, I'm just going to have a fucking tantrum right now. I can either do that on my own, or I can come and and she can then witness that with a bit of a smirk on her face, because
Okay.
she knows that I've just gone into my little boy and
Yeah.
have a little
Okay.
tantrum.
Yeah, that's really beautiful actually. And then you're allowing the kind of the entirety of yourself to be witnessed.
Yeah, but
Um,
yeah, I think definitely, just in case there was any ambiguity there, I
mm,
definitely think if you're using this as a way to just as another excuse, another veneer, going back to what we said at the beginning of the conversation,
mm,
another veneer to be a dick. You
mm.
know, it's like, if that's being used in that way, then it's probably not okay, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Um, and I think my inclination would be that it's right what you're saying, that definitely if you're feeling angry with someone in the moment, it's important to feel that emotion, but then to take yourself off and kind of handle it, separately in another situation. But
Yeah.
it's very courageous, I think, or it must be amazing to be in a relationship with a partner who's able to witness you in those different states.
Yeah, we're not perfect, by the way. I mean, I'm making it sound like we never actually argue, but we do. You know,
Mm-hmm.
just we're human beings, and we're learning. This is
Mm-hmm.
a learning experience, and
Yeah.
we're fucking up. Just to
Yeah.
make things clear, like, we're not this perfect couple by any means.
Mhm.
But I
Yeah.
think that if we can fuck up and learn from it,
Mhm. Yeah.
and come back into connection, come back into love at the end of
Yeah.
it, that's,
Mhm.
for me, that's the key here, and that's feels like what we do actually.
I think what I'm getting from this is, you know, in a way, life's messy, relationships are messy, parenting's messy, but if we can kind of keep reconnecting to love and reconnecting to ourselves, then, you know, that's the best we can do.
Yeah, but I don't think it has to be. I don't think it has to be in that moment, though. That's, I
Ah.
think, the yeah, because if we, I speak from the I. If I try and
Mm.
reconnect all the fucking time,
Mhm.
that's not actually what's true for me in that moment.
Mhm.
So I don't think. I think space and time uh,
Mhm.
is key as well. If
Yeah.
I if I just can't try and keep coming back into connection, all I'm doing is my body's going, don't want connection, don't want connection, don't want connection. My head's going, no, you should have connection.
Yeah.
That, I don't think that's a good idea for me, or
Mhm.
I would judge for anyone.
Yeah.
I think just trusting the body, trusting the
Mhm.
body in that particular moment. What is it? What do I want? What does it feel like? And I don't mean to intellectualize a feeling. I
Mhm.
mean, what is going on? If I what's going on for me right now? If there's tension there, or what does it feel like? What color is it? What sound is it making? And
Mhm.
what does that sound want from me?
Mhm.
That really helps me. And if that sound wants me to just get some space, to take some space, as long as obviously with two parents here, so we have to, the practicals have to come into that. And it might be that
Okay.
I'll just take Bjorn away, or I'll just, she'll take Bjorn away, and I'll just stay there
Yeah.
if something's going on. So yeah, there has to be feeling into the body, feeling into what's going on right now,
Mhm.
not trying to intellectualize or make stories up about it, and then actually using the brain to go, okay, that's happening now, but there's a practical thing here. He needs feeding or whatever. So yeah, it's a real juggling act, but
Mhm.
you've you know that, don't you?
That being a parent's a juggling act.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I feel like it's easier to get thrown off balance when you're a parent, that it's kind of there are definitely times when I sort of feel like, oh, this is fine, everything's working great and I'm really in flow. And then, kind of one thing goes a bit wrong and then everything's kind of thrown off balance for me, or
Yeah.
kind of how it's
Yeah.
always. Hmm.
Yeah. But this is what it's all about, I believe. Like, I genuinely believe that this whole thing is, whatever's happening, how can I show up with love?
Okay. Yeah.
I just think that's
Absolutely.
the crux of everything.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
any good, if you imagine any good novel or myth or legend or film or whatever,
Mhm.
If the storyline is effectively, you know, Annie wakes up in the morning, she goes to the forest and has a great day, the end. It's a really shit book. It's a
Yeah.
really shit film.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's a bit like life. It's like we need the bad guys. We need
Mhm.
the wise old witch. We need the, you know, the wise old sage and the hero, and the, you know, it's
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
hero's journey, isn't it? But it's, I think any good story, and that includes our own lives,
Yeah.
needs these children having a little tantrum in Waitrose or whatever. Need
Mhm.
these. Otherwise, what's it all about?
Yeah. There's got to be that overcoming in order for it to
Mm,
feel rewarding and meaningful.
yeah,
Yeah. And the kind of the tagline for my course is like parenting and life-changing adventure. And I'm sort of, in a way, I'm kind of quite
selling it.
sorry.
You're selling having children there.
Thanks. Well, I think it's, I guess what I'm kind of playfully saying is that, you know, it's not going to be perfect or easy, but actually, you know, like you say, none of the best stories or adventures are, you know, they've all got challenge within them. And I think it's what I want to encourage people to do is find the resilience in themselves to be willing to meet those challenges and overcome
Absolutely.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm worried about that black hole. I don't want you to fall into it.
Oh, yeah.
It's like it's humming away in that corner, and
Yeah, yeah, just a bit of
I just imagine you
antimatter.
just getting sucked off.
Yeah, yeah. I've got to impart my final words of wisdom, and that's
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Yeah. Well, she incarnated, did all this stuff, and then she was gone.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds all right.
Yeah.
So just to kind of to summarize, if you were giving advice to a couple who are expecting their first child, and they were worried about how it was going to impact their relationship, what would you say to them?
It will, for a start,
Mm-hmm.
and that doesn't have to be in a negative way. You know, the word impact could be anything. It just means that it will have an impact, and it will.
Mm-hmm.
Um, from a purely advice and practical perspective, go to a sauna together and a spa.
Okay.
Go to the cinema together.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, saying that, we live in a crazy world now. I don't even know if you could go to a spa and a cinema right now, which
Mm-hmm.
for me is insane. But yeah,
Yeah.
something's shifted. Um, that's the old Saturn Mars foot on the brake, foot on the gas, you know, in Pluto sort of like thing going on. But that aside, yeah, spend some time together, just some really good time together.
Mm-hmm.
That's from a purely practical perspective, you know.
Yeah.
And just be there for yourself as well in this, because it's easy to get lost in being there for partner or being there for baby, but you
Mm-hmm.
can't really, I mean, it's quite cliched, but you can't really be there for baby unless you're there for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, you know, it sounds weird, but prioritize self,
Yeah.
and then prioritize partner, and then prioritize baby, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
And you know, I see that, yeah, there's a very much a kind of feels like a satellite thing for a guy,
Mm-hmm.
or at least in our world it is. It's like, yeah, be there, the kind of satellite that allows this connection between mother and baby to really blossom by being a satellite, you know,
Mm-hmm.
coming in and protecting or whatever, you know. And sadly, I think that we're not allowed to say that anymore. It's whateverist, but I think it's true. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, make sure you've got your own support, whether it's emotional, social, intellectual,
Yeah.
physical, sexual, and spiritual. Make sure you've got all that, and maybe your partner can bring in any of that to help
Mm-hmm.
you. It's not their job, but maybe they can bring in something, well, especially with the sexual side potentially or whatever. But make sure you've got these really strong foundations as well. And
Yeah.
then it'll be fine, and it also won't be fine, and that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it, it's life, you know, it's life, and it's beautiful in all its insanity and fuckery and
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and love.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah.
And my experience has been that I think that the more I've faced and owned the shadowy aspects of myself, it's like the more spaciousness and the more light opens up within me, you know. So it's almost kind of counterintuitive that the more we face our own darkness, the greater our ability is to love.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you're being a full spectrum human.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sadly, you know, we landed on it a little bit earlier when you talked about anger, and you know, anger's got this horrendous reputation, but without anger, without the energy of anger, you wouldn't be doing this podcast.
Okay, what makes you say that?
Well, you know, if we talk about the energies of being, of doing, of thinking and feeling,
Yeah.
anger is in the doing part. That's the doing part. So
Okay.
if anyone you know represses that anger side because they're being told as a child, you know, it's not okay to be angry, and it's like a river. The river's going to either flow or it's not going to flow. You can't just block off half a river. You know, it's impossible. So if you block off that sense of, right, I'm not allowed to be angry, I'm not allowed to be angry, you're also not going to have any passion or any go or any ability to push forward in your life and get things done, because that warrior energy is, you know, is this Mars energy, however you want to label this energy, it either flows or it doesn't. And so
that's interesting.
I would say that if you hadn't have allowed that anger to flow, and I'm not talking about hurtful rage against another person, that's the shadow, I believe, the shadow side of anger. I'm talking about passion. I'm talking about the ability to get shit done, the ability to say no, and the ability to say yes, the ability to see something and go, I'm going for that thing. That's the archetype of Mars.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's given me a different perspective on myself, actually, which is really great, because I think I definitely have this kind of powerful sort of forward moving energy, but you know, I can also be kind of, you know, a bit moody and you know, like all of that.
And there's Venus, and without if you stopped your ability to be sad, for example, if especially young boys, you know, young boys get told, well, it's okay if he's angry, but if he's sad, that's, big boys don't cry, you know. And then with girls, it's often the opposite way around. It's like, well, don't get angry, that's not a girl thing to do, but it's okay if you cry because that's a girl thing to do. And so we tend to kind of switch the emotions. And you find a lot of women even as adults, and I'm really like, I'm making this a thing, and it's not always just women and men. I'm just saying that this tends to be what I've seen. With a lot of women, they express their anger by crying.
That's interesting.
And a lot of boys express their sadness by shouting.
And
it's like,
interesting.
When did that happen? And so I think if we can express this energy, and I like to call it by the planet name, because then it completely separates it from a human aspect.
There's no cultural baggage.
Exactly. Well, there is, but it's so far removed from our own culture, unless you study astrology, then it's so far removed that it's like, it means nothing to me. So if I say Mars energy, it's like, what does that mean? Well, it's the energy that gets stuff done, and it's also the energy that creates war.
Okay.
You know? And Venus energy is the energy that absolutely loves and wow, and dances, and it also is the energy that just breaks down into a mess on the floor in grief, you know. But if I don't break down into a mess on the floor with that grief, how can I possibly love?
Beautiful. And I feel like our culture broadly has ended up in this kind of middle place where everything's a little bit numbed out, and actually maybe it's because we're afraid or we're squeamish about kind of, you know, like you say, breaking down or kind of really expressing our anger. But it means that we also don't get the joy, and we don't get the you know, the passion and the excitement. It's really
and you see it now. I don't know if I don't know if you've seen that there's the kind of looting happening now. That's where we
Right.
are with this whole thing, looting.
Right. Okay.
And it's like, this is Mars energy, this is the anger energy that's being pushed down because it's not okay to be passionate about, it's not okay to really go in the world because it's like you're being cocky or aggressive or arrogant or whatever it is. And so it's just, it's like a bottle of fizzy drink that you're just shaking up, isn't it? And it's not being allowed to go, tss, tss, tss. It's just like shaking up, and then it's like, right, there's no real law happening right now. There's no police, just like, shh, and you end up with what's going on right now. Because people are whole beings. Humans are whole, and we're acting out of this tiny little space of what society tells us it is to be human. It's gonna happen that it's just gonna explode. Yeah, and sometimes probably not in the best way as well.
But we've got to, I think it's important kind of to tell a positive story at the same time.
Yeah, you're doing a podcast, aren't you? Positive story. Yeah, well, that's, in my opinion, this has to happen.
My son goes to a democratic school, and that's something that feels really exciting.
What's a democratic school?
So the children, they meet in the morning, and they basically they make the rules collaboratively. They decide what they're going to do each day and how the budget's going to get spent. And it's kind of foundational to that is like emotional and social well-being. So instead of teachers, they have mentors. I think I should do a whole other episode on democratic schools, actually. But essentially, it's really great. It was started in the 60s by this guy in America, and he recognized basically that we're supposed to be living in a democracy, but schools themselves are very undemocratic because people are they're forced to follow rules and do things they don't really want to do. Whereas if you're taught to be self-responsible and in charge of your own life, then you can actually be part of a democratic system in a meaningful way. So that's the kind of the foundation of democratic schools.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd call it democratic school, but I think it's a great concept that the children get to use their individual creativity and communicate about what they want to do. I don't like the name personally, but I mean, democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting what to eat for dinner. I don't think democracy in that sense works, but I love the concept of it.
Yeah, it's really great. Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for that. That was really fascinating.
Thank you, Nina. Thanks.
And I'll post a link to your course in the notes as well.
Great. Yeah, and the course is. I just will say one thing about it. We've opened it up completely. You can actually pay what you want. So I think it used to be £380 for the 6-week course. There's all the videos, downloads, and a private group. We've opened it up, and you can actually just use this slider and pay what you want. So there's no fixed price.
Yeah, great. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nina. Take care.